Within my sight and hearing, I vow to fathom the Daskam One's true and actual meaning. Good evening, everybody. We don't have to introduce ourselves because if you were here last week, then you have met Master Jing Den, and this is Heng Sure. Last week, we talked about the 4 right efforts. 4 right efforts is one of 4 of the practices among the 37 practices to enlightenment. And it focuses on vigor. You have to be vigorous to determine to spend efforts to cut off all the unwholesome deeds that have already developed. And even though to be very mindful not to let any unwholesome deeds to come into being. Not only that, you need to cultivate wholesome deeds that have arisen and also to that have not arisen. And then also for all those wholesome deeds you already have been practicing, you want to extend them and make them to be perfect. In ordinary people's mind, and there are lots of habits that we will do to harm ourselves and harm others, and these things we need to remove them to so that we can really practice the way. Tonight, the text talking about. Remember, last time we talked about these practitioners. They have the wish to have the right efforts. So because of that wish, now going to the next level, the Bodhisattva cultivates the Samadhi. They have that kind of these qualities to help them to achieve spiritual power. Spiritual power actually is not something really strange that we shouldn't talk about. Our Buddha nature understands. Because of it understands, it can penetrate into things and has no obstruction to understand. And that's the psyche power, the spiritual power that we are all endowed with. The reason why we don't have that functions right now is because of our unwholesome deeds, because of our tendencies. We always try to limit it ourselves by entertaining the desires, for ourselves. So with the 4 right efforts, then bodhisattvas are able to cleanse the nature and vigorously do all good deeds and do the right things and do the things right. And because of that zeal, that wish, I want to do good things. I want to follow the path of the Buddhas, follow the path of the bodhisattvas. And that's why the bodhisattvas will be able to accomplish the 4 practices. That's the 4 kinds of samadhis. Okay, let's read the text. Or does anybody have any questions so far? Or if you go back and you review the text and you had any question, please feel free to ask. And during our discussion, if anything occurs, don't feel hesitate to bring them up too. The text is on the bottom of page 8. We're going to read the Chinese verse. Okay. 复次，此菩萨修行欲定，断行，成就神足，依止厌，依止离，依止灭，回向于舍。Okay, English. Moreover, this bodhisattva cultivates the samadhi of zeal, ceases all action, and successfully cultivates the basis of psychic power. He emphasizes distaste for suffering, emphasizes leaving behind desires, emphasizes cessation of suffering, and makes transference to serenity, nirvana. So these 4 samadhis, this one is the first one, and the rest of 3 is kind of similar. Talks about cause and effect. The cause is they wish to cultivate the samadhi of zeal. They want to have the samadhi, and they want to have the basis of psychic power. And so what is the condition to realize the basis of psychic power? Cultivate, bodhisattva needs to cease all actions. After the bodhisattva is able to cease all actions, and then the bodhisattva will successfully cultivate the basis of psychic power. Okay, so that's the first one. And so from the 4 right efforts, the bodhisattva is able to deal with the scatteredness with the right efforts. When he is able to do that, the wisdom is still not fully developed, because when you need to overcome something, you need to use a lot of efforts. Once you can overcome it, your skill is not that developed or become perfection. So you need something else. And that's why now the text talking about practice samadhi. When you have the samadhi, then you can do whatever as you please, because everything will be accord with the Dharma. And in Chinese, it's talking about 神足, 成就神足, there's a psychic power. The reason, the psychic power, this psyche is like penetration. You have that power, you have the wisdom to penetrate into things. And the reason why Chinese says 足, 足 is like feet, because with the feet, a person can come and go, can jump up, and can run vigorously. So when someone has this feet, then he can get lots of things. He can do lots of things, and to attain the worldly Dharma. And the Dharma, in the Dharma realm, we talk about the supreme Dharma, refers to all these transcending, Dharma transcending the world. And how can you achieve those bases of psychic power? You need to practice samadhi. When your mind is not moved by the external states, and also not moved by internal feelings or attachments, then you can do. You can really function spontaneously, reacting at the whatever conditions arises. So this is why here the psyche power in Chinese is a senzu. Another term for this psyche power in Chinese says 如意足. 如意足 means that the feet that can function as one pleases. Why one can do whatever he pleases? That's the genuine freedom, because whatever this person does will not cause bad consequence to suffer later, right? A lot of people talking about freedom, I have the freedom, so I don't have to listen to my mom. I don't have to listen to my teacher. I don't have to follow the rules in the company. I don't have to abide by the laws of the country. I can do whatever I like. So, all kinds of bad things can happen. That's not genuine freedom, because once does not follow the rules and violate the laws, this person can be in trouble, in big trouble, right? So a bodhisattva understands that in order to have genuine freedom to do as one pleases, this person has to cease all kinds of action that will lead to bad consequence, right? So this zeal, how can one cultivate the samadhi of zeal? You have to base on the teaching of the Buddha. Why a practitioner has to base on the teaching? Because the teaching is a way to teach you to be liberated, to have freedom. So the bodhisattva, after hear the Dharma, and inside this bodhisattva needs to select. We talk about a good cultivator needs to have a Dharma selecting vision. You cannot just recklessly follow other people. You need to use your wisdom that comes from within. We all have that inherent wisdom. And after I hear the Dharma, I know there's a way to freedom. There's a way to liberation. There's a way to end suffering and attain bliss. And I have that. I have that nature. I have that quality inside. And as long as I'm able to follow the path and develop that, cultivate that, then I can attain that. So from that zeal, from that yearning for the freedom, from that yearning for the psyche power, this person will focus on what one learns, the Dharma, and then practice to the perfection and realize that and can do as one pleases. That's called the yu ding, the samadhi of zeal. And how do we know this bodhisattva has achieved that, has achieved the samadhi of zeal? He will realize the xin yi jing xing. Xin is the mind, jing means the state. There's this bodhisattva will be able to cultivate and the mind focus at one point, at one condition. This is one of the 7 types of samadhi, xin yi jing xing. Your mind is always focused on that Dharma. Your mind is always focused on that liberation. Your mind is focused on that samadhi. Your mind is not distracted by other practices, by other dharmas. What's the mind of ordinary people? Ordinary people entertain lots of ideas. All of a sudden we think about food. All of a sudden we think about fame, money, and health and relations and other kind of things. In our mind, we can entertain more than one thought. We can, at the same time, we can think about all kinds of things, different things. But the bodhisattva, their mind focus at one point. When you are able to focus your mind at one point, that frees the space in the mind. So that's why a bodhisattva will have that kind of clarity to penetrate into things, to use the inherent wisdom. Does that make sense to you? You know, we can look at our lives, you know, when living in the world now, everybody needs to do multitask at one time. For a housewife, maybe she's cooking at the same time answering phone or answering the door or call the kids to do homework and, you know, lots of different things. For a worker at the office, this person can do a lot of things together too. We are used to this kind of life. We don't think that there's any problem. Maybe we do a little bit when it's the evening after we worked. You know, we feel so tired because we have to, you know, we have to entertain so many things at one time. Or at the end of the week, at the end of the month, we are so tired. But bodhisattva, they want to realize that the mind focus at one point, never entertain other things or do multitask at the same time, and has that yearning for the Dharma that this bodhisattva is practicing. Of course, you can also explain the samadhi of zeal refers to the 4 right efforts the bodhisattva focus on to cultivate all the wholesome dharmas. And even though the wholesome dharmas have not arisen, and will make sure they will arise. What are those wholesome dharmas that bodhisattva have not realized? There are many, many different things, but I can name one, okay? Impartiality. The bodhisattva will never discriminate between different things. It's hard, but when a bodhisattva or practitioner, for instance, you are mindful, you are focused on that practice. I have so many differentiation in my mind with the people, with the books, with the jobs, with different things. But now I'm going to practice this impartiality. Everything, comes from the same origin. We shouldn't make discrimination. And you focus on that. Or you can also focus on deal with torpor, sleepiness, restlessness, So that's what the Bodhisattva does for the 4 right efforts. They want to particularly do away with the torpor or restlessness, because these two are big elements to hinder our samadhi. Okay? So when the Bodhisattva is meditating and there's this torpor or restlessness, and the Bodhisattva try, when this Bodhisattva feels sleepy, then he will stimulate the mind to cultivate. Don't sleep. I shouldn't fall asleep. And then because of that, this Bodhisattva will realize the samadhi of thought. And if the Bodhisattva is meditating And there's this restlessness, then the Bodhisattva keep calming down the mind, and this Bodhisattva will realize the Samadhi of contemplation. So there are these cause and effect because the Bodhisattva pay attention closely to his practice or her practice. Then the basis of psychic power at this level will be realized. Another thing that we can talk about for the Samadhi of zeal is that the Bodhisattva has that kind of wish for all kinds of conditions that will bring forth unwholesome dharma, or the nature of unwholesomeness. And there are the faults. So the Bodhisattva think about, how can I deal with them? How can I overcome them? He pay closely attention and evaluate, examine his mind, and pushed his mind to focus at one point. I shouldn't entertain this thought to be famous or to be this. I just want to have, to realize the totality of my nature. So he has that kind of a zeal, that yearning. And when he practicing meditation, when he, in his life, he will always focus on the cause and condition to bring forth the nature of wholesomeness. And because of that effort, he will be able to leave behind all the faults and carefully examine his mind, introspect his mind, his thoughts. Then he can dwell on that oneness, that focused single thought. And because he could constantly practice that, so eventually he will touch that one point nature. And because of that, he touches that nature that, the mind stays at one point and not distracted by other things. Then it will help to disrupt any manifestation of bad deeds. Basically, that's the commentary for the Samadhi of zeal. As for how will he do that, he needs to practice cutting off 8 things. Okay. Do you have anything? If you have any questions, feel free to ask. And then later we're going to talk about the ceases all action. All action are categorized, summarized in 8 of them. Yes?
A question on the translation and also so first is, I think the original Chinese says
He emphasized what?
These
These days. We haven't gone that far yet.
Well, I would like to say something about the psychic power. We don't focus our mind in psychic power during the cultivation. The psychic power will appear naturally with the cultivation as long as we follow the instruction of Buddha teaching. So we don't seek psychic power. Okay, this is very important. And in cultivation, we should make great vows. Great vows represent the strength the power, direction, and our goal. And great vows help us to accomplish the way. We recite the great vow every day, the 4 great vows. We have to do it, okay? And when we talk about the psychic power, we say that we have to keep the proper mind. Our mind should be pure. We should get rid of all kinds of afflictions, and in order to accomplish the way. Let's talk about the desires. That's the basic problems of all living beings. The 5 desires: the fame, the form, wealth, food, and sleep. When the person attains certain position in the work, and can he renounce all of this in order to dedicate for the cultivation? It's not easy to do that, right? And the form, we like to wear nice clothes, to see good things, hear good things, and all of these can we renounce in order to cultivate? Not easy. And the wealth, this is the material world. We have money and we can buy everything we want. We can travel everywhere we want, live in big house, drive a nice car, and eat everything we want. Is not easy to renounce. Food, we can taste all kind of food in the world. Hungarian, Italian, French, Chinese, American, all kind of food. And we feel, wow, this is a pleasure. This is our entertainment. So people work day and night in order to pay the bills, right? Not easy to renounce. And sleep. Most people sleep 6 to 8 hours. Have you ever thought it represents 1/3 of the day? It's not easy to renounce it, okay? Because some people just think it's part of my pleasure, right? Like the poor people, poor, their life is limited. If they have 3 meals a day, they feel satisfaction with that, right? We are in the Saha world, and we see everything in the world, and we entertain everything we have, and we haven't seen anything beyond this world. We have no comparison. We don't have any reference to tell us, hey, I have to see something else. And we just stay in the world, and we are very pleased and satisfied with what we have in the world. Venerable Master said, if you don't renounce the force, you cannot realize the truth. Everything we see in this world is force. Everything comes from our mind. Can we accept it? We have to think about it. For example, Kuai-Ji Fa Shi, Dhamma Master Kuai-Ji, Dhamma Master Jie just started last week. There's one incident, funny, happened to Kuai-Ji Fa Shi. He went to Precept Master Dao Xuan place to have the meal. Why? Because the Precept Master Dao Xuan received the heavenly food every day. Why? because his precept, he cultivated precept very diligently. And he moved to the heavenly beings to bring food from the heaven to him.
Every day.
Every day. So he doesn't have to cook. And Kuai Ji Fa Sư said, oh, all food in this world I have tasted already. All delicacies, exquisite food. But I've never tasted heavenly food. I want to go there and join him for the lunch, right? And he didn't tell him ahead, I'm coming to have the meal with you. He just appeared and said, can you share your meal with me? Okay. He was national master at that time. He was the teacher of the emperor. He was well-known Kuai Ji Fa Sư, okay? And prison master Dao Xun was well-known also because of his cultivation. So no problem for prison master Dao Xun. They just wait, okay, noon come, afternoon, evening, and nobody appear, nobody show up. And Dharma Master Kuai Ji was a little bit upset. Oh, you are cheating. Nobody brings anything for you. But it was getting dark, so he stayed at his hut, at his place overnight. When he prepared to rest, he starts snoring as a thunder, okay? And he, prison master Dao Xun couldn't get into Samadhi with his thunder. And the next day morning, prison master Dao Xun claimed Dharma Master Kuai Ji, how come you're a good cultivator and you sleep so noisy? You have no department at all, okay? And he said, you tell me I don't cultivate? I have no department? You know what I did for you last night? I had to talk to King Jama on your behalf because you killed 2 lices when you were sleeping. And he checked, 2 insects behind to his place. And Dharma Master Kuai Ji said, you put one of the insect on the floor and you broke his leg. And the other one you just put on the floor and he died right away. And both of them went to the King Jama to claim for the life. Okay? And the King Jama wanted to come for you, but I have to talk to him on your behalf. And you said, I'm not cultivator. So, precept master Dao Xun, he didn't say anything. You see, the sages, their state, we don't know. So when you see somebody snoring, don't look down the person. We don't know which bodhisattva is coming here, right? And this is one incident of Kuai Ji Fa Sư. Well, Kuai Ji Fa Sư was also known as a 3-card patriarch. You know that, right? When he left the home life, and he asked the emperor, I want 3 cards, one with wine, one with beauties, and the other one with meat. And the emperor accepted his condition. When he went to the monastery and the bell at the entrance of the monastery was ring, and he realized he got enlightened at that moment. Oh, I was a cultivator. I came here to propagate the Dharma. And he told the 3 cards, you go back. But he still was known as the patron of 3 cards, okay?
There's also about the story, the reason why the food was not presented.
The food was not what?
The reason why the food didn't come,
Oh.
because after Dharma
Yeah.
Master Kuei-ji
Yeah,
left.
the next day morning, the precepts master, Kuei-ji Fasi left, and at noon, the heavenly being just went there with the food. And precept master said, "How come you didn't come yesterday? I had a guest here." And he said, "Oh, I was in the surrounding about 40 li,
40 miles.
40 miles surrounding your small house. It was illumined by a bright light, and I couldn't see anything. I couldn't find the path to go to your place. And I asked the earth spirit, and he told me there is a life bodhisattva in that house. And he said, I couldn't come. I'm so sorry." And he apologized to the precept master. Okay. So you see, the bodhisattva, life bodhisattva, and amazing state. And we are ordinary people. We don't know it. This is about the Dharma Master Kuei-ji, okay? And in the test, we don't know anything beyond this world. And that's why we don't have any reference. If we are willing to renounce the Dharma of this world, all the defilement, we are willing to get rid of our habit and cultivate accordingly to the Buddha Dharma, and eventually we will go forward on cultivation, and we will get to the point of the goal, okay? The other point is we talk about the Samadhi. The Samadhi, in order to get to Samadhi, the point is we are not moved by the 8 winds it mentioned in the text. What are the 8 winds? The 8 winds are 8 states. 8 states are praise, ridicule, happiness, suffering, benefit, destruction, gain, and loss. Okay? And people like to hear the praise from others. And this is the extreme. We should get in the middle way, okay? If we like the praise from other people, we are moved by the wind. Very careful with this, okay? Even the happiness and the suffering. And people think, oh, it's good to be happy. It's not good. Happiness is one of the state, one of the wind also. When the people is very happy, and they will be a little bit deluded, confused, and they will forget what they have to do. That's why Venerable Master always say, you are happy, but don't be so joyful. When you are sorrow, don't be so sad. We have to keep in the middle way. Also for the benefit and destruction, and when the people feel the benefit and destruction, they are moved by the wind. And the gain loss is the same. So we have to be very careful in our cultivation regarding these states. Here, there's a story from Su Dongpo. Any one of you haven't heard about Su Dongpo? Su Dongpo? All of you know the story? No, okay. Su Dongpo was a poet, ancient poet in China.
Very famous.
Very famous, and he was a good cultivator also. One day he was sitting in meditation, he felt states, and he wrote a poem immediately. The poem goes, I bow to the God among gods. A light illumines the world. The 8 winds blew up, but do not move me, as I sit upright in the purple gold lotus. That's what he felt at that moment, and he wrote down the poem immediately. After he wrote the poem, he sent it to the Chan Master for Yin to have the certification from the Chan Master. He hoped, oh, Chan Master, when he see this, he would say, oh, you are a good cultivator. That's what he was waiting. So he sent with the messenger, with a note, and when the messenger get the place, Chan Master looked at the poem, and he wrote 2 words at the bottom of the note, fart and fart, and sent back with the messenger. The messenger, when he handed out the note to Su Dongpo, he was so angry, and he ran away to Chan Master for Yin. He said, how come you wrote these 2 words for me? And you cannot see the state what I was
In.
And practicing the meditation. And the Chan Master said, you said you are not moved by the 8 winds. Only 2 words bounce you from south to the north across all the Ganges River. So Su Dongpo didn't have a word to say. He bowed to the Chan Master and waiting for his instruction. Sometimes we think, oh, I'm ready. But when the test comes, we fail, okay? And so the test is not bad. We just face to the test. Sometimes the people say, oh, in the city of 10,000 Buddha, the people say, so many tests here for me. And but the test is good to tell us where I am with my cultivation. Are you ready or not? You are not ready, you fail the test. If you are ready, you know. So everyone know exactly what the level is going on, right? And Su Dongpo, oh, he couldn't say anything because he failed. Another incident from Su Dongpo is one day, he was arguing with the Chan Master, and the Chan Master said, oh, I see you as a golden Buddha. And he said, oh, Master, I see you as a pile of mud. And the Chan Master didn't say anything. When he went back home, he saw his sister, and he made the comment to the sister, I won again. I told him he was a pile of mud. And the sister said, oh, brother, you lost again, because his mind was pure, and he saw everyone as a Buddha. But your mind was impure, and you see everyone as a pile of mud. Okay? So that's another, well, a lot of incident about Su Dongpo, and this is the cultivation. But he practiced very vigorous, okay? So we have to apply our effort, and don't be afraid to face to any test, and we have to continue with all the practice. We fail, don't worry, just stand up again and keep going. You fail again, just stand up and keep going. We have to have the willingness all the time to improve ourselves, okay? To go forward all the time, to be vigorous. That is another samadhi that we're going to talk about. And eventually, we will attain the way. but don't retreat. If we face any difficulty, we just stop and I go back. No, don't do it. We have to continue with the cultivation. And one day we will receive good news, right?
Okay, so talking about this 8 wings, we are all attached to the good wings, praise and gain and fame and what is the other one? Pleasure. Okay, so when all these 4 wings hit us, we feel, wow, I'm so wonderful. Okay, life is so beautiful. And we get attached, and we have the big head, and we have, we are really influenced by that. We are blown by those 4 wings that we like. But we are, at the same time, we can be also repulsed by the other 4. The other 4, when the other 4 blow into us, we feel overwhelmed. And we like to escape, we like to hide, we like to deny. A cultivator, how can you really attain Samadhi and not be moved by the 8 wings? I think the first thing is that we have to realize what kind of attachments we have in our mind. And you have to, go back to the Dharma and remind yourself everything is impermanent. Even though it's a wind of praise, a wind of recognition, a wind of gain, they come and go, come and go, come and go. Even though it's a wind of disrepute, and if you cultivate and change, it will become a favorable condition for you. Nothing stays forever. Okay. So don't follow it, and you just use your mindfulness and the zeal. I want to be free. I don't want to be moved by anything. And the reason why we have attachment is we have that ego. So basically the 4th ground bodhisattvas, all these suffering, distaste for suffering, comes from ego, the perception of me, I, my, and mine. So using vigor, diligence, one will attain some good news. We'll have some good news. So now I think I can briefly introduce you the 8 practices that the Bodhisattva needs to seize, those 8 actions. The first one is zeal. The one practicing these can help the Bodhisattva to practice the Samadhi of zeal. So with this practice, the Bodhisattva will be able to cut off the manifesting deeds towards the unwholesome conditions or unwholesome practice, and be free from delusion, be free from fetters. Okay, and the second one is with those practices, a bodhisattva will be able to forever cut off the latent seeds, the latent fetters. Okay, so what are the 8 actions? The first one is zeal. The second one is diligence, and the third one is faith. The fourth is securing oneself in joy. And number 5 is mindfulness, dwelling and stopping. And number 6 is proper knowledge. Number 7 is reflection. And number 8 is renunciation. So the first 3, zeal, diligence, and faith, the bodhisattva needs, he yearns for the dharma he's practicing, that he want to realize, he can master, he can be skillful to what can be attained. So because of that zeal, he put efforts all the time. He's so diligent, always doing additional, more, to let go of the bad deeds and to do the good deeds. And why he would be able to do this? Last time we talked about that courageous and the purity, nothing mingles with his practice. He will focus on all the good deeds. But here, in these 8 practices, talking about why the Bodhisattva will be able to be vigorous and zeal for the outcomes, is because of his understanding, his faith. Faith in Buddhism is very often mentioned, but that faith is not blind faith, because Buddha has faith, because Buddha's success, then I'm willing to do that. No, in Buddhism, when we talk about faith, there needs to be 3 elements. The first one is that you really want something from your own, from your nature, from your mind. You know inside there's this truth. And the second one is that the virtue of this quality is freedom, is compassion, is wisdom, is penetration, is joy. So you understand that virtue. And the third one is you wish for it. I want to realize that. Why you want to realize it? Because you have no doubt about this is the right path. This is something very solid. Everything in our world we see that moves, they don't stay long. They come and go, come and go, come and go, like bubbles, like illusion, like dewdrops in the morning. They don't stay. But once you realize, you cultivate a way, you realize the totality of your nature, that totality is solid, is true, is permanent, is joy, is compassion, is wisdom, is samadhi. Okay, so after you study the Dharma, you understand there's this origin that we all come from. I want to realize it. I don't want to suffer by all these flux in life anymore. I had enough. With that understanding, you can go forward. That's a very, very important element in our cultivation. Why are you coming back again and again to listen to the lecture, to study the teaching of the Buddha? Because you heard something that makes sense, and that when you practice it, you will have more space, more room for happiness. You can, your suffering is reduced bit by bit. So with that solid understanding and that, you like to go for it. You like to spend your efforts nonstop. And when you are able to do that, what happens? You will have joy. Your rough fetters are gone. You don't struggle with a lot of things that usually will bother you. You think all these are not important, And so that's why the practitioner will have that securing, secure in joy. And in Chinese we say light ease. When this person experiences that light ease, I think he also developed his samadhi. He can dwell, he can base himself or herself on that light ease and not easily being challenged by the external flux conditions. Okay, so next level, because he has that happiness and all the rough fetters are done away, he can dwell his mind on that state. He's mindful, and that's why he's mindful. He dwell on that stopping to do the bad deeds, stopping to violate the precepts, stopping to hurt others, stopping to do things that not honest. This person is mindful of the Dharma. His mind secures, his mind settles on the Dharma. And Dharma is the right path and will help us to go away from wrongdoings, that mindfulness. And number 6 is the proper knowledge, dwelling in contemplating. So basically, these two talk about the samadhi, stopping and contemplating, 止观, both make together the samadhi. How do you really, like when we meditate originally for beginner, there are a lot of the thoughts. Oh, my legs hurt. Oh, my back pains. Oh, now it's too cold. Oh, I'm hungry. I need to go to the restroom. A lot of things going on in our mind. But, the more you practice regularly, then all these thoughts will settle down because of your developing your skill, your mindfulness. When you are mindful, there's this warmth come up, and then that sustains your happiness. Then you can have the energy from that warmth, and also you will be free from challenges, as long as you are able to dwell on that. Okay, and when all these discursive thoughts stop to arise that often, you have that space in your mind, that clarity, so you can contemplate. You can examine your mind, your thoughts, your behavior, your life, your relations with others, your study on the Dharma. All these will help you to gain an insight to understand things better. So stopping and contemplation together, a meditator can use from time to time, different time. And so that's number 6. And number 7 is reflection. Reflection, one's mind operating according to stopping and contemplating. This So when the mind, all these discursive thoughts stop to arise, and that clarity helps the practitioner to examine, to investigate the mind and the life and the people, and this practitioner will be able to have the right understanding. Talking about this, that reminds me of in Mahayana tradition, if you want to study the Dharma, there are 3 levels. One is hearing the Dharma. You need to study the Dharma. You need to listen to the Dharma. And then you have to contemplate how that can be relevant to me, for me. Okay, how I can apply. And does that make sense? Can I really understand? Can I observe it? Can I absorb the Dharma into my nature and become one? Whatever I do, whatever I say, whatever I think, follows that. And the third one is cultivation. So Wen Si Xiu, hearing the Dharma, contemplate the Dharma, and the third one is you need to cultivate. What do you cultivate? You renounce everything. All these are tangible. They don't stay long. They don't stay forever. These things I shouldn't get attached to. I shouldn't seek after. Everything I can renounce. Why? Because there's this treasure, great treasure in me. That is the diamond. That is not, we always say in Buddhism, don't mistake the fish eye for the pearl. Okay, when a businessman selling pearl, and he faked the fish eyes for the pearls. The fish eyes are all these things Dharma Master just mentioned: fame, like food and sleep and wealth and pleasure. They are not treasures. When the Bodhisattva or a practitioner listen to the Dharma, understand there's a great treasure, then everything you shouldn't mistake continuously the fish eyes for the pearl. You have to focus at the pearl. Pearl is my goal. I want to realize the totality of this inherent nature and to get it function. So you will not be contaminated by other phenomena, by other things that don't stay long. So that's the renunciation. Does anybody have any question? We need to go faster. So I think we can just go on to the next one that the gentleman just asked, distaste for suffering. Distaste for suffering. What caused suffering? Anybody? What caused you suffer? Me, I, my, mine. When people are talking about, oh, you are a bad mother. Look at the food you cook. That's the yuck food. They are yuck. I don't want. Oh, you are a mother. You don't know how to clean the house. Oh, you are a mother. You don't care. You are a teacher. You don't have wisdom. Oh, you are a Dharma master. Every time you come to the lecture, we want to leave. And so I suffer. They suffer. She suffers. Why? Because of the ego. So the Bodhisattva practice, the zeal, the Samadhi of zeal, the Samadhi of vigor, the Samadhi of thought, and the Samadhi of contemplation. He had enough of the suffering, and he know all the suffering comes from egoism. And that's Lao Tzu's realization too. Lao Tzu said, the reason why I suffer is because of me, because of the perception of me. So had enough of that distaste. I don't want. In Chen Wei Shi Luan, talking about distaste, we discussed about this word, before, and people say distaste is really not a good word. But the reason why there is this distaste, because the Chen Wei Shi Luan written in the ancient time, talking about a practitioner towards the state that the one doesn't like. Why this person has this distaste is because of the free of greed, free of craving, because the practitioner already understands the suffering that cause. So he already developed that kind of skill, lack of craving, no craving at all. Why? Out of his or her wisdom. When you practice the way, you develop your wisdom, you know what is good for you, what is bad for you. You don't want to crave anymore, because when you entertain that habit inside, you will constantly experience disappointment, dissatisfaction. And you want to end suffering and attain bliss. It's all in your mind. It's your choice. Do you want suffer? If you do, then continue craving. You cannot guarantee all the time you will be satisfied, because life is dissatisfaction. Why? Because this is a retribution body. We don't have that good karma. So how do you end your suffering? You need to pull out the cause for the suffering. Dao Master just mentioned, leave desires behind. Okay, so when the cultivator, the bodhisattva, understand the fault of attached to the self, the person, the bodhisattva, had enough. I don't want to attach to myself. I don't want to be attached to myself anymore. I want to cut off that view of the self. Okay, so when the bodhisattva has that, so he will not get attached to the states anymore. And the second one, leaving behind desires. I think we already talked enough. But for here, is that the bodhisattva will get rid of the view, the delusion of the views. Okay, basically the fundamentally is the view of self. So when you have no view of the self, anything happens, any comments made for you or your family or things belong to you, you are not troubled by that. You are not bothered by that. So you can attain the light ease. By practicing, emphasize leaving behind desires, this practitioner will experience that light ease. And the third one, emphasize cessation of suffering. You need to remember your mind dwells on what you wish for, you cultivate for, the Dharma you're cultivating. You don't forget about the Dharma you are cultivating. What is that? You want to realize the one mind focused. 心一静心. So you're always exploiting that nature. You are cultivating the cessation of suffering. And the fourth one makes transference to serenity or nirvana. You need to cultivate and do away with the delusion of views and delusion of thoughts. Then you will be liberated. You will be free from the attachment to the self. And why, when we talk about the 4 stations of mindfulness and the 4 right efforts, we don't talk about these emphasis? Because only the bodhisattva reached this level. The bodhisattva had the samadhi power. So we need to talk about these. They emphasize these 4 things. Basically, it's the 4 noble truths. Because of the samadhi, they have the samadhi, so there are these things. Okay, I think we had, even though it's not clear to you maybe, so far, it's a story time again. Does anybody have any question? Feel free to ask question.
Well, I did have a question.
Yes.
So in the Chinese, or in English translation, say he emphasized this test for suffering, but for suffering wasn't there in Chinese. So
Right.
how did that?
It's because of the 4 noble truths. Basically, these emphasis are talking about 4 noble truths. And 4 noble truths, the first one is suffering. The second one is cause for suffering. The third one is cessation of suffering. The fourth is the way to cessation of suffering. So, yin, what this states what? This states for suffering. So I don't want suffering. I had enough. That's why in English, the master put it there to make it clear. We don't want people to have that negative ideas about the text. Actually, is that it does, when we entertain the thought, about the self, that's really a big suffering, the big suffering.
So the other question is, I guess no one likes suffering. Really. So why emphasize this test for suffering?
Okay, so because we think about suffering, we want to leave suffering behind. If we don't talk about suffering, then there's no realization of bliss. So as talking about emphasizes leaving behind desires, so we must to cultivate leave desires behind. That when we talk about the cause of suffering, then we understand the cause for suffering is desire. So here, talking about you need to emphasize, you want to leave behind desires. And when we talk about cessation of suffering, then we have to realize the cessation. And when we talk about practicing this way to cessation of suffering, then you need to do that. You need to find all these ways, the path, and you need to cultivate it. And then finally, suffering is ceased. So cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. If we don't talk about suffering, and then what's the point to talk about the states? Discuss about I had enough. So there's this cause, and then there's the effect. You want to seize all the action, and you want to realize the basis of a psychic power. So what do you do? These are the four noble truths. And in other texts, they only talk about the Four Noble Truths as the state, as the condition for their cultivation. When the text comes to the 5 powers and the 7 Bodhi shares. But here in the Avatamsaka Sutra, when Bodhisattva practiced the 4 samadhis, the 4 bases of psychic power, he already the Huayan school already talking about 4 noble truths. So I think because of what I explained before, your direction is the Four Noble Truths, then you will definitely, emphasize on these things. So you will get the effect and cultivate that and make transference. I can quickly talk about this for basis of a psychic power. Actually, there are these 4 things. One is additional practice, 加恨, and the second one is a 摄受, like gather in the practitioner's mind. And the third one is your mind will dwell on it. And the fourth one is you have to have counteract the faults. Okay, so how you counteract, you need to practice the way. When you practice the way, you renounce all the unwholesome elements obstructing your way, like restlessness and sleepiness are 2. Any other questions? Yes. Yes. Okay. So his question was that usually when we do transference, we transfer the merit of our cultivation to the karmic collectors, or to transfer to the rebirth to the Pure Land, to the land of ultimate bliss. Why the Bodhisattva on this level transfer to Nirvana? Remember last week we talked about the wholesome dharmas that the Bodhisattva focused on to arise or to develop to perfection. the ultimate point is the state that's free of differentiation. Okay, that's the reality. The reality is the real wholesome state. The reality is oneness. There's no differentiation in that oneness. You and me are the same. There's no separation between you and me. Your happiness, when I'm kind, when I'm compassionate to you, actually I'm compassionate to myself, because there's no separation, there's no difference. We don't understand this. We don't perceive that way. If I help you to be successful, what about me? You know, when you become famous, then I'll become nobody probably, or not as famous. I don't want to do that. I don't like to do that. Why? Because then I'll be the secondary. You'll be the number one. I don't like to see other people to be number one. Okay, so nirvana, what is the state of nirvana? There's no mental activity anymore. There are no states that will move you, that will challenge you, make you uncomfortable. You'll be constantly joyful, joyous. Okay, you'll be constantly compassionate. You'll be constantly wise. You'll be constantly everything. You know, that's all wholesome dharma. Why? Because that's our true nature. Our true nature is that way. The reason why we make discrimination, we feel uncomfortable, we will be challenged, because we entertain the thought of self and others. When we have this idea of the self, then we think about others. Oh, I'm not as good as, you know, up to the other person. Then I feel uncomfortable. Or I'm on the top and people are all below me. Once I see somebody is climbing up and after me, then I feel not happy. That's not the bodhisattva states. The bodhisattva states wish to go back to that same origin with everybody. So no condition will challenge that. No condition will alter that. So when all the conditions arises will not hinder the bodhisattva's state of mind, that's nirvana. Does that make sense to you? Did I answer your question? Okay, any other question? Okay, if you have no question, then I thought about something. It's not easy to practice this, we all know, because this is fourth ground, okay? But when you start to practice this, after you attend the lecture this evening, you grasp something, you start to practice. The Bodhisattva, the reason why Bodhisattva is able to practice the basis of psychic power, he or she didn't start from this life. It's because of the seed of Samadhi in this practitioner accumulated from life to life. So when a state arises, this Bodhisattva will immediately practice Samadhi without difficulty. Same thing, many Buddhist friends here practice Pure Land Dharma Door. They come here every Saturday in the afternoon to recite Namo Amitofo. Namo Amitofo, 6 syllables in Chinese, also in English. It's the easiest practice in Buddhism. So in the Dharma ending age, Buddhas, our patrons, suggest us this is the right practice. But how many Buddhists come into this Buddha hall, recite Namo Amitofo, can maintain that oneness, that one thought, and not go distracted? It's very hard. You need that Samadhi. You need the seed of Samadhi. As soon as you hear the Dhamma door, you can right away go and dwell on it and your mind is Namo Amitofa, Namo Amitofa, Namo Amitofa. When you are eating, when you are drinking, when you are walking, when you are talking, your mind inside you don't lose that mindfulness. You are still focused on that Namo Amitofa. It doesn't come easily. Just because it doesn't come easily, you need to pick up the practice right now. So next time when you hear other people recite Namo Amitofa, when you see other people are meditating, when you see people are studying the sutra, when you see other practices, you can quickly join, and your mind, dwell on it. Because we need to nurture that habit. That's like pure conduct Dharma or 净恨品, always 当愿众生. Whenever the Bodhisattva is doing, the Bodhisattva will think about all living beings. How many of there were there? Yeah, 92. She's 92. Longevity comes from the blessing. But of course, because her cultivation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, people we remember always because of their caring, there's this warmth. I have an announcement too. The announcement is for the next Saturday at City of 10,000 Buddhas. We're going to have a special lecture, and this person, she She's the ambassador for creative projects and global affairs at the IONS. And this, Dr. Marilyn Skillitz, her presentation topic will be worldviews, creating new capacities in a rapidly changing world. And the introduction about this, I think, is really appealing to, at least to me. Amid ever-increasing cultural diversity and social complexity, it is clear that developing the capacity and competency to understand a multitude of perspectives is necessary to navigate and thrive in a global society. How can we learn to know ourselves and to appreciate others in a multicultural society with the numerous, sometimes dramatically opposed traditions, values, and goals? What will bring us communicate and work together successfully to create personal fulfillment, healthy relationships, and global sustainability? Thriving in the 21st century requires dramatic changes in the way we handle complex encounters and different perspectives. This is a shift that asks us to consider anew the way we experience ourselves, others, and our place in the world. So she will address research conducted by the Institute of Noetic Sciences, showing that the most powerful step people can take toward achieving their highest potential is to cultivate the willingness and ability to understand new perspectives. The Worldview Explorations Project is an innovative educational initiative that has grown out of IONS. Okay, so if you are busy, you cannot go, don't feel disappointed, because I think the presentation will be posted later on our website. But I think that's, what do you think? Okay. What time? 7:30 to 9, the same time here. But you need to come to study the 5 powers and 5 rules. Okay. So. No question, huh? Except yeah, the 4, you mean the 4, the list of the 4? Samadhi means 神足通. The reason why it's only translated as Samadhi because 足 is just analogy. You know, analogous to the Samadhi, how it will bring you. You can just function freely. Like someone has a feet, can walk, come and go, and jump and run, you know, that freedom. So that's why if we really translate feet into English, probably people really need explanation. So I think that's why the term was chosen that way, right? Okay, so ask the second question again. 你说中文。No, because you practice ceases all action, all the 8. you cut off the wrongdoings, and then you will realize that basis of psychic power. If you don't, then it will still, your clarity will be hindered. Your psychic power will be hindered. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Reverend Heng Sure did mention we can change. So you guys have good English. You can figure out how to make it right.
He here just mentioned psychic power. I think we always see the spiritual penetration, and with the cultivation of samadhi, the spiritual penetration will appear. So the psychic power here, I think, is the same to the spiritual penetration, but it's not the same. So it comes if we practice samadhi.
Okay. No more? Okay, you all have samadhi sitting peacefully under sitting over there. Okay, we can do transference now. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace, with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may their minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light bright the darkness of their endless night. Because of hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassion.